Hello there, night owls. Welcome to another episode of Night Talk. Come on in, grab a seat. We have a very astro landscape conversation for you today. For those of you who are new to Night Talk, this is where we schmooze about everything under the stars. I'm your host, Gabriel Biederman from National Parks at Night. Thank you for joining us. Please comment below where you are tuning in from. And while you do that, just a reminder, if you can't stay for the whole episode, they are posted on our reels about 10 to 15 minutes afterwards. You can go rewatch this episode and more, including our recent ones with the Aurora guy, Isabel Tabaki, Sarah Matthews, and more. We also have these wrapped up in a more viewer-friendly, wide format on our YouTube page. Usually that takes about 2 or 3 days, and I'll drop that link where you can rewatch that all in the chat. For those of you, yes, all right, but wait, there is even more. Not only do we have one more Night Talk planned this Tuesday with Monica Deviat, but you can also get a free taste of Night Photo Summit sessions next Tuesday and Thursday by logging on to 2025.nightphotosummit.com. Starting at midnight East Coast Standard Time this Tuesday, the 21st, that free replay will be Mike Shaw's 2024 class at Night Photo Summit called Designer Nightscapes. Okay, so just go to our homepage. You'll need to scroll down just a little bit. That's where sort of the live viewer is, but then you can watch it. You've got 24 hours at midnight on that Tuesday night. It disappears forever, and then you're going to have to wait till Thursday. All right. So, all right, who do we got in the house here? Oh, Alex, right on. We got Italy is in the house. Oh, wait, no, Portugal, Italian in Portugal in the house. Good to see you, buddy. We got Juanita, Drew, Debbie, Vineet. Justin, you are just killing it. Thank you again for joining us. I don't think you've missed one yet, so really appreciate this. All right, so again, let's see here. Again, we've got a very special one for you today. Dan Zafra from Capture the Atlas. Capture the Atlas was co-founded in 2017 by Asen Aynat and Dan Zafra. These two joined forces to create a bilingual blog and photography tour company that shares their passion for travel and photography. Dan is also the creator of the popular Capture the Atlas Milky Way calendar, which helps thousands of photographers plan their shots around the world every year. And he's also the creator and curator of the Milky Way Photographer of the Year and the Northern Lights Photographer of the Year. This is an annual list of honorees that inspire people worldwide to go out and photograph our universal home. So, folks, let's give a warm welcome in the chat to Dan Zafra.
Hello. Thank you, Gabe.
Dan,
Hi, everybody, and yeah, good to see you again.
Good to have you back. I apologize if I slaughtered your partner. How do you say her name? Asen?
Yes, it's actually a Spanish name. So the technical way you say it is Asten with the, because as you know, we have a lisp in Spain when we talk.
Yeah.
But yeah, most people in the US and America say Asen. But that's fine. Okay. You did very well.
Okay.
Better than most people. Yeah. I will get her.
So, Dan, obviously, first question. Where on the Atlas are you? Kind of point to the Atlas. Where are you?
Yeah, so if pointing to the Atlas, you go to Europe, Spain, and you go to the southern eastern coast of Spain. In that corner, that's where I am. It's a beautiful, beautiful place in the Andalusia. It's the southern region of Spain. So we have nice weather. Currently, it's like 75, 74 Fahrenheit. Beautiful weather, beautiful, people, nice food. Good place to be here in winter, at least for a few weeks.
Yeah, I wouldn't call that winter.
It's actually very mild. Yeah, it doesn't feel like winter, but yeah, it's fine.
Right on. Oh, and just a reminder, folks, so those of you in the chat, drop your questions in the chat for Dan. Feel free. We got about an hour conversation ahead of us, so we want to get to your questions. If you have any questions for Dan for Capture the Atlas, about Milky Way Photographer of the Year, about his calendars, anything, drop it in the chat and we will get to it in the conversation. I'm going to kick things off. Dan, thank you for pointing us to this very warm Mediterranean climate. I'm feeling cozier already. You have long solidified yourself as a leader in the landscape and night community. But bring us back to the beginning, Dan. What first fascinated you with photography and in particular, the night skies?
I think like I just started like most people, just getting a camera maybe by chance. I was interested in photography since I was a kid, with point and shoot cameras, and doing like the typical shot during holidays and things like that. But it was when I bought my first digital camera, and I started doing, I think like most people, a little bit of everything, like landscapes, wildlife, portraits of friends and family, things like that. But it was a trip that I took to Iceland and Scotland in many years ago, where I was doing my first landscape shots, where I went really hooked into photography, and I was taking my first landscapes, and I was completely fascinated about doing this thing. And later on, maybe like about a year after doing my first landscapes, is when I discovered night photography. At first, it was pretty terrible. I had like an old APS-C Nikon camera, which wasn't very good. All the images were very noisy and very bad. But I was completely hooked, on doing this. There was something magical when I was seeing the stars and the Milky Way in the back of my camera. Also the Northern Lights in one of the first times I shoot them. And since that moment, I just became, as I said, really passionate about landscape, but also the night sky. And especially in the last maybe 6-7 years, I've been doing mostly nightscapes, white field astro, panoramas, and things like that. But yeah, the beginning was, I think, like most people, a little bit of everything, and then progressively, I've been getting more and more into astro, and that's the main thing I do right now. It's the thing I love, and there are so many reasons why I love doing that. But yeah,
and we know you for that. You've kind of you hit a home run right off the bat with so much of that astro. I mean, Iceland, that's got to be. I mean, it always is an inspirational place. How much has Iceland changed since that first visit? Right?
Oh my gosh, so much. Yeah, that was more than 10 years ago, and I remember, it was in September, which used to be low season in Iceland, and it was really low season. There were not many people around. There was, parking lots were very rustic and basic. You didn't have to pay for any parking lot. No big buses, and it was a very different experience. I mean, Iceland is still amazing, and I highly recommend everyone going to Iceland. But yeah, things have changed a lot in the last 10 years in the country.
For to adjust to getting, what is it, like it's like millions of visitors. It's insane. It's way more than the people that they have there. So insane, but beautiful country and wonderful people. The people there are just so welcoming, especially for seeing so many people a year.
It's true. Yeah, I love Icelandic people.
All right, so Iceland, check. Have you been to all of the continents?
No, actually not. I've never been to Antarctica.
Okay,
which, reasonable because it's very far. But yeah, surprisingly, I've never been to Africa. And I say surprisingly because for us from Spain, it's not too far.
You're looking at it. You're looking at it out your window.
Yeah, actually, from here. Yeah, if I get a boat and I start, sailing in that direction, I can be in Morocco in maybe a few hours.
I would think so.
It's true. Yeah, I mean, it's super close, and there are very cheap flights to Morocco. But for some reason, I've never been to Africa. Okay. I'd love to go to Africa one day. There are so many countries that I want to visit. But yeah, it's the only continent apart from Antarctica that I've never been to. I've been to all the others more or fewer times, but yeah, those are missing.
Antarctica is always, right? I think that's always usually the last. If you get that one checked off, then you are way ahead of the game. And that's always a tricky one because for us night photographers, maybe it might be a little low on the list because they're really
That's the thing, yeah.
the only time you could go is when there's no night photography, right?
Yeah.
So maybe catch it.
Yeah, and it's fascinating when you see these guys who are, stationed there in the stations in Antarctica, and I know some guys doing like aurora photography in Antarctica in winter and things like that. But most of them are scientists, who are doing their work and doing some photography in their free time. But that's challenging.
They don't go outside much in the wintertime.
No.
They do not go outside much. Exactly. All right, so let me get a little bit more specific now. What's kind of like maybe what places that you haven't visited to? Let's get maybe and you talked Africa a little bit, but where in Africa or where else on our planet are you eager to explore that you have not been to?
Well, talking about Africa that we're discussing, again, so many places in Africa. One of the places in my bucket list, very high on my bucket list, is Namibia. I've never been to Namibia, and as you know, for a landscape astrophotographer, I think is the country to go in Africa. It seems like a very nice mix of landscapes, wildlife, but also incredible night skies. Again, never been there, but I have so many colleagues and friends that have been there and have shared incredible images from that region. And I also love the desert. I live in the desert in the US, in Nevada, and I love the desert, the night sky. So I think that mix for me is very exciting. There are, of course, more countries like Botswana, even Morocco, which is, very close, and more places. But in Africa, I'd like to go to Namibia. That's high on the list.
Nice.
But yeah, worldwide, there are so many countries. I mean, in South America, I've been to many places. I've been lucky to explore a lot in South America. But one place I really want to go is the Argentine Atacama region. We all know Chile and the region in Chile, San Pedro and that area. But on the other side in Argentina, there are like 2-3 different regions that look very exciting. Like Puna, there are different places that look great for astro.
Yes.
And again, desert landscapes. So that's also very high on the list. Again, I don't know when, but hopefully one day we'll be able to make it. And yeah, even in the US, I mean, in the US, I have never been to New Mexico, for example, and I have to go to the Badlands in New Mexico and the mountains in Colorado. I mean, it's huge. So yeah, there are so many places left to explore.
We have a wonderful planet, don't we?
Yes, exactly.
It's fascinating, and really, we're just talking about this stuff above the water, folks, right? Because most of our planet is ocean, right, in water. So, Dan, I think we could team up because I've been to Morocco and I've been to the Atacama Plateau. So, together with both of us, we've been almost to everywhere.
Then we need to go together to Antarctica, I think.
Yes, that's it. Together, we got to get it off the list. All right, that's awesome. Love it. All right, so each year you share an updated free Milky Way calendar for not just like a general one. It's for 24 regions on the Earth, so everyone can kind of get a very focused sense of when the Milky Way seasons will be, and up and down and all around. Please share the details on the importance of this to night photographers and why they need to download it and how they can better use this calendar to plan their Milky Way adventures.
Yes, so we started about 8 years ago with this project. We call them Milky Way calendars, but it's very basic. It's like a chart where we just list the best days to see the Milky Way in a particular location. So, for example, if you are whatever in the US, in Europe, there are, like Gabe said, 24 regions in our planet. You can see in a very quick look, in just one glance, you can see which are the best days of the year to see the Milky Way. So we make it very visual. There are 3 different colors. Days which are in dark blue, which are days with a very bright moon, or maybe when the Milky Way is not visible. And then days when the Milky Way is visible for a few hours, and then the best days, or what we consider the best days to see the Milky Way. And those are days marked in red. So that way, you just want to see when is the best time to see the Milky Way, from what time to what time, what location in the sky is going to be the Milky Way. You can just check the calendar very quickly, and in just a few seconds, you can plan your trips. This has been very helpful for a lot of people, so we've been adding more and more locations. We have around 24, 25 locations at the moment. And even there's like a slight degree of change of latitude from your location, that's fine. You can still use them. You can download them for free, 100% for free in Capture the Atlas. So if you Google Milky Way calendar, Capture the Atlas, you will get to our page, and there you can download your free calendar. Again, it doesn't matter where you live, there will be one for your location because we cover all over the world, except Antarctica again. But yeah, all over the world, there's a calendar. And yeah, it's a very useful tool. Again, very simple, and it's been very helpful for a lot of people.
And I just dropped the link, folks, in the chat, so you can go ahead and download your 2025 Milky Way calendar and start planning those trips. What's interesting, Dan, I've been doing the night photography since the film days. We had the opposite calendar. We had to plan our night photos by the full moon back in the film days because the film wasn't sensitive enough to pick up the Milky Way. So all of us in the Bay Area and San Francisco, we would plan weekend adventures, during the full moon, to go out to the desert, to go up to Yosemite, to go kind of somewhere in usually the California area to do it. So it's funny how that's flipped. There's lunar calendars are super popular, but also the Milky Way is just as popular. I think
it's funny that we try to stay away now from the moon, which is the opposite.
But there's great moon work. We can't stay away. We shouldn't stay away. But obviously,
of course, yeah.
All right. Well, so you mentioned that was your the seventh calendar that you've made, right?
Yeah, I think we started in 2017 or 2018 was the first. So I think it's the 7th or 8th year we've been doing that. Yeah, it's been a long time, and some people are like waiting every year for the calendars to come and be launched. So yeah. I had to thank. Yep.
When does it come out usually? When do you release it? Is it January 1st?
Usually end of the year, so around November. And we got a lot of pressure because people are start planning the trips very far in advance. Exactly. Some people are like, "Oh, when are you gonna launch a 2026 calendar?" And but it takes a lot of time to create them, and to go slow. But usually November, December every year. We give them, and if people want to receive it automatically, they can subscribe to our newsletter and just they'll get an automatic copy as soon as it's out there.
Perfect. This is also like your 8th year of offering the Milky Way Photographer of the Year and I believe Northern Lights Photographer of the Year competitions. Can you share a little bit about that? How does one enter and learn more?
Yeah, that started as a passion that we have because the main thing we do is landscape astro, but inside the landscape astro, the main things we love are the Milky Way and the Northern Lights. So our goal with this project was to share every year what we consider in Capture the Atlas the 25 best images of the year, either because technical difficulty, composition, inspiration. It's like a mix of everything. And every year, Milky Way Photographer of the Year is launched in May. And the Northern Lights Photographer of the Year is launched in December. Every year we launch these two collections, again, with the 25 best images and the stories. And it's the 8th edition now this year in 2025. It's a special one. We got a lot of great photographers over the years. A lot of them are actually presenters in the coming Night Photo Summit. And it's very, very inspirational because you get to see images from all over the world. You learn a lot from the photographers. Every photographer shares their gear, the EXIF details about the shot, how many images they use, what inspired them. So I highly recommend everyone to check them out because it's very inspirational and you get a lot of ideas for future shootings. And if you want to take part, it's very easy. We are always curating throughout the year. For the Milky Way, we create images until March. And then in April, we take a month off to do like a final creation. And then usually around May, late May, we usually publish the selection. And the best way to take part if you want to show us your images is to tag Capture the Atlas or use the hashtag Capture the Atlas on Instagram, Facebook, X, whatever you use for social media. And same for the Northern Lights. Northern Lights we curate until October. November we do the final creation, and then December we publish. So if you want to take part, we are, all year round, creating images, checking them out. And yeah, I mean, we'll be happy to see all your work. So I encourage everyone to take part. It doesn't matter if you think, oh, I'm not so good, or my images are not that great. Sometimes we value a lot about originality, like original locations, original compositions, great stories behind the scenes, and yeah. So feel free to to tag your images, and
awesome.
we'll
All right,
check it
so
out.
that's it. So either at or hashtag capture the atlas. That's how you're going to get the eyes on it, and hopefully make the cut. But definitely get inspired. They're always amazing images. And what's great is not only obviously if you're subscribing to Capture the Atlas, you'll get notified. But boy, the Guardian was promoting it. The newspaper, the Guardian, and other news outlets were also promoting your winners. So it's a great visibility and opportunity to get your name and your work out there. Question about this, Dan. Do the images need to have been taken in that previous year, like so from March to March of 24 to 2025, right? That's you'll be looking at that EXIF data. So it's not like you can't go back to your best shots,
No.
you've had. It's got to be the shots of that 12-month calendar.
Exactly, yeah. So once we close the creation, let's say for the Milky Way is going to be March, like late March. Then in April, we're not taking any more images. So any images from April until March, end of March the following year. So it's almost like a year calendar.
Yep.
And same for the Northern Lights, we usually close in late October. So anything shot until late October, it's gonna be fine. So from November last year until October this year, same for the Northern Lights. You can share your images, and it's great. We're in solar maximum, amazing aurora images, and we just published a couple of months ago. It was the most difficult, difficult selection so far. We got like 5,000 images from aurora from all over the world. It was incredible. And for the Milky Way, we already have a lot of images, but still, there are almost like 3 months to go until we close, and 2-3 months. So and it's a great time now to go out, shoot Orion, and
I gotta say that that the Northern Lights, what a year we've had, and what a year, hopefully, fingers crossed, we are going to have this year. But wow, I would imagine this is your first year of seeing auroras in so many different locations. Right?
Yeah, no, it was mind blowing. We're featuring images from the Chilean fjords in Patagonia. We're even in Namibia, which is very south. The Canary Islands in Spain, Madeira in Portugal. I don't know, all over the world. It was just insane.
So
incredible.
What a treat for us all. And we were talking with Vincent Ledvina, the Aurora guy. He still thinks we've got a good year. We haven't. You don't know when we're out of the solar maximum until it starts to go down a little bit, folks, and things are still popping. So get out there, be ready, get your aurora alerts, and get submitting those images to Capture the Atlas. And who knows, you could be a 2025 Northern Lights photographer of the year. All right. So, Dan, let's talk a little bit about gear. Star trackers. These seem to be essential to your work. Can you share the reason why you always leave just a little bit of room in your pack for your Benro Polaris tracker?
Yes. For me, the first time I used a tracker, it was like a game changer. Obviously, before I was shooting with full-frame cameras, fast lenses, and those things made a big change. But using a star tracker was possibly the biggest change in my photography. When I was taking those long exposures and using better settings. And that was a few years ago. And since that moment, I became, again, hooked on that. So it doesn't matter where I'm traveling or where I'm hiking, I'm always taking a tracker. Most times now, I'm shooting with a Benro Polaris. That's been my main tracker over the last 2 years, because I can automate things like multi-row track panoramas. I can tell the tracker, okay, start here, finish there. I'm explaining all that in my next talk in the Night Photo Summit on the 26th, where I talk about a Milky Way panorama. But this is just like an introduction. I use that tracker, and I can automate tasks, like especially Milky Way panoramas, which is the main thing I do. But using a tracker is fundamental for me. I can use better settings. I can Obviously, shoot a longer exposure, maybe 2, 3, 4 minutes. That allows me to use lower ISO and I get more dynamic range. And also, I can use better settings like a closer aperture to get rid of aberrations, diffraction, vignetting, things like that. So yeah, it doesn't matter where I'm traveling. It can be in the corner of the world. I'm always taking a tracker, and that's the main thing I use for my astrophotography. Yeah.
Awesome. So, is it just one rig that you're going out with? Just this camera, the tracker, and everything, or what else is packed in your bag for that? What else is essential to your be packed on your night astro trip?
Yeah, so obviously the tracker that we mentioned already, but I also travel always with a sturdy tripod, usually 2 tripods, because I usually carry 2 cameras, 2 tripods.
Okay.
But yeah, tripods, cameras. I shoot Sony, but you can shoot anything now. All the cameras are great, and then the tracker, of course. And yeah, maybe that's the basic thing you need. So you don't need like a whole bunch of things, to shoot amazing images. I use some accessories that you can use, in the night sky, and sometimes they can be helpful. For example, a lens heater if I'm going to a humid place, that become very, very useful. I sometimes use a hydrogen alpha filter. I've been playing with that lately a bit more, just to capture those hydrogen alpha regions in the night sky. Not always, not in all my images, but when I have like a long session, I usually play with those filters a lot. And yeah, but it's pretty basic. I mean, you don't need like 10 lenses and 5 trackers. It's super basic, and even with just a tripod, tripod and camera, you can get nice images. And if you add a tracker and a couple of things, yeah, you don't need anything else. It's pretty basic, and yeah.
So I know last year I think you taught a class at Night Photo Summit on astro modified cameras. Right?
Yes, correct. Yeah.
So do you have? You say you go with 2 cameras, one astro modified, both astro modified. Are they the full spectrum, or are they the H alpha?
Yeah, so I shoot with 2 cameras. One is my astro modified camera, and that's the Sony A7 III, and it's a visible plus H alpha modification.
Okay.
My other camera is a Sony A1, and that's the one I use for landscapes, and also for most of my foregrounds at night. I usually shoot with a dual setup, which is shooting with my tracker and my astro camera, and then my foreground, with my other camera back to back. I will explain this in the photo summit a lot, because it's super interesting. It's like a little trick, and it's very interesting what you can do with that setup. It's incredible. But yeah, having the ventral Polaris is great because I can do that. And having a modified camera also helps a lot. Like I was talking last year in the conference, having a modified camera is another game changer. After having the tracker, I think the next step is probably getting a modification. It can be full spectrum, it can be H alpha, whatever. But yeah, that makes a big difference in your images because you capture more light, you capture more detail in those hydrogen alpha regions. It's another point of interest in your images. So,
nice.
So yeah.
All right. Well, I'm eager. I'm eager now to learn more in your class. Speaking of which, again, folks, we are thrilled to have Dan Zafra back at our upcoming Night Photo Summit, January 24th to the 26th. His talk is titled Anatomy of a Milky Way Panorama. And during this session, Dan is going to take us on a journey to the Southern Alps of New Zealand. And Dan will reveal his step-by-step process behind creating one of his favorite tracked Milky Way panoramas. This talk will dive deep into the techniques, the decisions that brought this image to life, offering insights that any astro landscape photographer, whether beginner or advanced, can apply to their work. I think this, Dan, I'm so psyched that you are offering a class and just really dissecting one image. I think so many sessions that that we go to, and no matter what, we try to show as much work as we can and show as many images, but to really dedicate an hour to really get into this image and really tell us how you created it, I think is very fascinating. I'm really, really looking forward to that class. Speaking of which, and I've been talking a lot, who you are, your gear, all this other stuff. But we haven't seen any of the images. So let's see, especially for those of you who are not maybe familiar with Dan's work. Shame on you. But let's take a look at some of your images and share with us the story behind those shots and maybe some of the technical details that went into creating these images. All right. And first, let's start off with an aurora shot. And this doesn't seem like this is in Iceland.
It doesn't look like Iceland or any Nordic country that we're used to.
Exactly.
Yeah, that one is a very special image. I think it's my favorite from 2024, from last year. For any Aurora freaks watching this, you know that May 10th through the 11th was the first big show that we have in the all over the world. There was a KP9 G5, I think, storm with auroras visible everywhere. By chance, I was here in southern Spain, where I'm right now, where we enjoy about 320 days of sunshine with no clouds. But guess what, Gabe? Guess what? That day was fully cloudy, so I miss it. Yeah.
Yep.
I completely miss it. I couldn't believe it, because here it's always clear, like almost always clear. And that day was completely cloudy, like not even high clouds, like 100% clouds everywhere. So I was biting my nails, seeing all images from all over the world, like Southern Europe, Arizona. I mean, I was very happy for all the community getting
of course.
But at the same time, I was like, when I will be able to capture this, in these rare locations, because it's very rare to see auroras in Southern California or Southern Spain. So I said to us and to my wife, I said, next time that there's a big show, I'm gonna go wherever is clear. I don't care. And turns out last October, it was October 9th. October 9th, no, but it was forecast on the 8th, like a couple of days before. They said that another big storm was, hitting Earth.
Yep.
So I said, I was in Vegas right there during that time. And again, Vegas is usually clear most of the year. But again, guess what? It was cloudy again. The forecast was cloudy. My plan was going to Death Valley, maybe, or somewhere around, but it was completely cloudy. And I was checking the map. Most of the Southwest was, cloudy, like southern Utah. I didn't know where to go, and I saw this little hole of, clear skies in around the Eastern Sierra in California. I said, I'm gonna go there no matter what. So I remember it was Thursday. It was a almost 6 hour drive from my house in Vegas to Mono Lake in California. And I had an appointment the next day at 9 a.m. I have like a very important. I got a very important appointment in Vegas, so I said, I'm gonna try anyway. So we drove, during the day to Mono Lake, captured the sunset, beautiful sunset, and then we were very lucky to enjoy this show. It wasn't. I don't know how was the May show because I didn't watch it, but this was pretty incredible. And I had to rub my eyes. I cannot believe I'm seeing the aurora, even the reds, the pinky tones were visible naked eye. There was a beautiful star arc in the sky. And again, I couldn't believe it. And I captured some, very original images that I really like, because we're not used to seeing auroras, in these locations. It was very tough to get back, home after. But I was so psyched, I was really motivated and pumped after this shot that I didn't care. I could drive back very happy. I was with a smile the 5 hours back.
And let's note this is not a panorama. This is a rare. No, not a panorama. This is a single shot.
It's a single shot. Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah, single shot, very basic. Point my camera and shoot. Yeah, that's all.
And Mono Lake is a very special place. How many people? Was there anybody else there? Or was there a lot of people there? Who else had that same idea?
There were a few people. Most people were, I don't know if you know Mono Lake or people know Mono Lake. But there's like a main area, like a viewing area. It's like a bay, kind of like a beach. And with a very actually you can see in the picture on the far right. There's like that rock is very famous there, and most people go to shoot it to a beach, on the right side. So there were a few photographers there, not many. And then I was alone. I just scouted during the day because I arrived before sunset. I found
Wise.
this location with the pillars and what they call the tufas. They are called this limestone. They are limestone formations. They are called tufas. And I found these tufas with these spooky shapes. And I said, yeah, I'm gonna be here. And that's what I did. I set up my tripod and I said, I'm gonna stay here the entire night until I get the best moment. That was around 2 a.m. There was a little bit of moon brightness at the beginning of the night, but then after midnight, it was completely dark. And that was around 1ish, 2 a.m., something like that. That there was like an explosion, one of the moments, and yeah, it was pretty incredible. Yeah.
I love it. Lovely shot. Mono Lake is a really special place. I got to say, remember when I said I was doing the film back in the Bay Area? Mono Lake was our like number one place to go to. We really just it is these tufas, the reflections is one of, I think, the most underrated night astro locations in the world. I really think so.
I agree. And I encourage people to check it out. Even with no aurora, it's just insane.
Yeah, even with the aurora. If you get aurora, submit it please to the Capture the Atlas.
Yes.
All right, let's see your next image. What's going on? Okay, now, all right. Now, to me, this seems like I recognize this as a Dan Zafra, okay, a Pano Milky Way, but it's unique. What's going on here?
Yeah, that's most of the things I'm normally doing, like landscape, Milky Way panoramas. That was in 2023, end of 2023, and that was in Australia. It was my first time in the country, and I was running a tour with a good friend, with John Rutter. He's another great astrophotographer from Australia, and we're together in this location. It's a national park called Mungo, 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 and it looks like this, I mean, kind of similar to the Utah Badlands, but it's like a huge area with these beautiful, kind of hills, badlands and formations. And especially, having this Milky Way in the southern hemisphere, in that location. It's a Bortle 1, which is super dark. And here is the typical place where you are and you think, I can spend like a month here because there are compositions everywhere. You can step, 10 feet to any side and you find different compositions everywhere. And yeah, this is one of the places where I like the most, where there was like this kind of drainage of water leading the viewer's eye towards the Milky Way in the back. Some zodiacal light in the, underneath the Milky Way. And I don't know, I love the composition that night. It was like these leading lines, the Milky Way on top. One of those nights I just like, oh my God, it's just beautiful and incredible.
I tell you, that zodiacal light, just, I think to me that is a game changer in this image. Beautiful image, but it's just that spotlight, right, of the light kind of coming in, and then it's going right through the center of the core as well. Is it's just amazing. Have you experienced zodiacal light much?
Yeah, well, in a few places, mainly in very dark locations, but in the Peruvian Andes, in Atacama, I've seen very strong. I think the strongest even in Atacama, strongest I've seen. And then also in Australia, we saw them, and New Zealand as well. A few days I've seen very strong, especially when you're in a Bortle 1 with no light pollution.
Yep.
You see this beam of light that looks like actually looks like an artificial beam of light. It's all natural light that is there in the sky. And you can see it in camera, even in your raw firing camera, you can clearly see that beam of light in the sky.
Yes. And this usually, I know in the Northern Hemisphere, this usually happens during the equinoxes, and in March and September time frame. Is that the same in the Southern Hemisphere?
Yeah, kind of similar, but it was actually in the it was the spring equinox in the Southern Hemisphere. It was in September. So it's so in Northern Hemisphere. It's the opposite.
Instead of being fall and spring, it's spring and fall. Right?
Yeah,
exactly.
Okay. But that's like almost, I would say, guaranteed. Like when I've been to New Zealand or Australia in September, the Milky Way is falling in the sky. So this Milky Way is not rising; it's falling. The arch is kind of setting. Nice. So whenever you see the Milky Way after dark, after sunset, the Milky Way is in the sky, like an arch, like there, and then the zodiacal light is underneath. And that's been consistently in almost every night that I've been there. Okay. Super strong. In the Northern Hemisphere, my favorite time for zodiacal light, I think, is spring. So usually around March, Yeah, places like Death Valley, Southwest. I've seen like beautiful zodiacal light, especially again after sunset when you see Orion in the sky and then the zodiacal light. Yeah.
Boom. Yeah. So it's a wonderful thing, folks. If you haven't witnessed zodiacal light, mark your calendars for the equinoxes, right? Every year you have an opportunity and get someplace dark. It is an amazing thing to experience and obviously to photograph. Okay. Where are we here? What's going on?
Here we are in Lake Tekapo in New Zealand. This is another border one, I think, is super dark. And it's in the Aoraki. It's called Aoraki Mackenzie Dark Sky Reserve. It's the largest international dark sky reserve in the world. Whoa. It's a huge area of public lands in New Zealand, and it's close to the Southern Alps, so very close to the mountains. In this particular lake, there is like a microclimate. This lake is famous for a church. Most people have seen the iconic church in New Zealand. There's like a church with the mountains and the white mountains in the background. So this is the same lake, but it's like a different area. And yeah, this was my first time shooting the Milky Way in New Zealand. And I was again completely fascinated by the scene. It was super dark, beautiful place. And I found this beach in the lake, doing like a semicircle. And I thought that it could be interesting to do like a panorama to capture the Milky Way, mimicking, like a mirror, mimicking the beach, like a semicircle. There was some reflection that night, and and the air glow was beautiful as well, like kind of greenish, air glow. And yeah, one of those nights that I love. And I follow again my typical process with my Ventro Polaris, my tracker, my Astro modified camera. And yeah, another beautiful night to remember.
This is right. Everything comes together in this image. A couple things I want to point out to maybe some of our viewers who don't know. Again, we're in the southern hemisphere. What are those celestial objects on the left-hand side?
Yeah, those are the Magellanic Clouds. So those are galaxies that we cannot see in the northern hemisphere. The one underneath that looks bigger is the large Magellanic Cloud, and the one on top is the small Magellanic Cloud. So you can see them in the southern hemisphere, I would say, almost year-round. It doesn't matter if you go there in the spring or fall; they are always there in the sky in different positions, and it's they're very interesting. You can see them naked eye. They are big galaxies, and especially the large Magellanic Cloud is visible naked eye clearly in the sky. And also, with the camera, it's like a very big galaxy, and it's one of those regions that we are not used to seeing in the northern hemisphere. Yeah. But when you go to the southern hemisphere and capture it, you are like, "Wow, this is incredible."
I tell you, whoever who has not been to the southern hemisphere, get there ASAP, because it's magic. It's all new stars. You have to totally realign yourself, for the most part, right?
New stars for the same star upside down. Yeah,
exactly. And right. So everything you're lost, but you get to see all these new nebula, and the small and large Magellan clouds are just awesome. In fact, I got to shout out. We've got an Australian in the room right now, and a night photo speaker. Kat's in the house. Ian, her husband, also is here. We've got quite a few. Jurgen just joined us. Shout out to Jurgen and Susan Magnano. Great. Thank you all for joining us. We've got a bunch of speakers for Night Photo Summit in the house here. And so who also... Finally, is that you in the image? Or I love that you added the person for scale in that.
That's myself. Yeah, I was alone. I was alone that night, so I wanted to have some scale, because otherwise it was like a little bit, you don't have the sense of how big the lake is.
It's pretty wide, right? It's pretty wide, so that gives it some nice scale. Really, really nice.
And I don't do that in all my images, but sometimes when I want to give a sense of scale, I just put myself in the image, and I don't like using lights or things like that too much, but just putting myself in the frame just to have an idea of, especially in the panoramas. Sometimes if the panorama is too large, I think it's good to have something that can give you a sense of scale.
Perfect. Okay, where are we going to next? We're camping. Where are we camping?
Yeah, that's a star party. Well, not really a star party, but
Yeah, yeah, it
that
does
was a
look like.
group in well, kind of, yeah. That was a group in Peru. That was in the Peruvian Andes, so northern
Whoa.
Peru, and we took a photo trek. It was 8 days hiking in these beautiful mountains, some of the biggest in all the Andes. These
Wow.
mountains are like 20,000 feet. They're super huge. And yeah, it's like an 8 day trek where we basically hike, sleep under the stars, and then shoot the Milky Way every night.
Love it.
It's mostly clear every night because in Peru there's no winter or fall. It's mostly around the equator. So you have the dry season and the wet season, like most of the equator countries. And basically, you go from June through September. Clear skies are almost guaranteed. So
Nice.
this was one of the nights where we're camping in a beautiful spot where we had the mountains, this beautiful valley, and then the Milky Way on top. And yeah, I was good with the group. Most of the people went to sleep because they were so tired. We've been shooting. We have been shooting for many nights. I think that was the end of the trip. That was maybe the seventh or sixth night. And sometimes people, but the trip, sometimes they get tired. It's cold. That's really cold. And I remember I was just there with a couple of of our students, and I was shooting there with them. So I took the time to take a quick shot and set up my tracker.
Yep.
And yeah, it was an incredible image. That's one of the best. When people ask me which is your favorite night sky, one of the top three that I always mention is the Peruvian Andes.
Wow.
Because it's super super dark, and since you are at a very high altitude, it's like Atacama. You are maybe
Yeah.
about maybe 15. You are camping at 15, 16,000 feet. The stars,
Okay.
are like
Wow.
the sky
Yeah.
is like the sky is like three-dimensional. It's that you can touch it. It's a unique experience. Yeah.
So you're using your Astro modified camera, obviously for the sky. Are you also using? You said you mentioned you have special filters as well to bring out those nebula up at the top.
Yeah, no, not in this image.
Okay.
In this image, all the nebula that I got was just with the camera and stacking different images.
Okay.
Using an Astro modified camera and stacking, you can get a lot of these hydrogen alpha regions. But I've been using that. I don't know if it's in one of the images we are checking, but sometimes there's like bigger nebula. In the southern hemisphere, there's the Gum Nebula, this huge nebula in the sky. So for those regions, I usually use my filter, or even in other images, but not in this one. This was with no filter.
Right on. Thank you. Thank you. Also, all the tents so well maintained, and I really can't understand how people could have fallen asleep with after they saw this shot. This would have been if I fell asleep and I saw this shot of yours, I would have the biggest regret in my life.
No, but actually, I think this was one of the best locations. But before those days, we were shooting in incredible places, especially lakes with reflections.
Nice.
And yeah, so
Nice.
I think nobody regretted sleeping probably.
All right, let's see what we have. Okay, staying in the southern hemisphere. Share with us where we are.
This is in Atacama. Probably the landscapes looks familiar to people because these landscapes are very recognizable. When you see deserts and the southern hemisphere Milky Way, usually it's Atacama most times. Atacama is a huge region. It's incredibly big. It's vast. But this is one of my favorite places. It's a location called Monjes de Pacana. In Spanish, they call Monjes de la Pacana. And it's popular for these rock formations. Again, I put myself there in the frame for a scale, because if I'm not in the frame, you don't know if that rock is tiny or is big. And that rock was huge. I don't know, maybe like 30, 40 feet. Some of them were bigger. It's an area, it's like a desert, plain desert. And all of a sudden you have these huge rocks in the middle of nowhere. Again, Bortle 1, so super dark. The ALMA Observatory is the most important radio telescope observatory in the world. Is very close to this location. It's a little bit higher up, but it's about an hour from this location.
Wow.
Again, one of those places that is difficult to describe and put into words. How you feel when you are in one of those skies. Especially when you look at your camera and you take your image, you take your raw files in camera. They look already edited. Like, you don't have to do much. Just play with some adjustments and boom, all the detail, all the information is there.
And
So yeah.
do we have a little bit more zodiacal light there? Is that what we're seeing?
Yeah, kind of. It's a little bit. It's a bit fainter, but you
Yep.
can see behind the subject
Yep.
until you take like a straight line until the Milky Way core. That's zodiacal light. Again, it's not as evident as the one from Australia, but it was there. Yeah.
And what are those wonderful nebula constellations that we have, like kind of going straight back up from there? Can you share?
Yeah, so on top of the Milky Way core, we have the Rho-Fuki region. That's in the Antares constellation, and that's visible from both hemispheres. The difference is that in the northern hemisphere, it's usually closer to the horizon because it's always near the Milky Way core. Northern hemisphere, we never see the Milky Way core very high, unless you are in Hawaii or like a lower latitude. But yeah, that's a Rho-Fuki region with a called Antares region in the constellation. And then on the left side, that kind of red color and red nebula, that's called Z of Yuki, and it's part of the same complex. And yeah, one of those regions when you have a modified camera and you apply the right settings, you can get a lot of detail and a lot of colors and information.
Beautiful, beautiful. Well, thank you for this journey to the Southern Hemisphere. Let's see. Okay,
let's go to the Northern Hemisphere now.
We're back. We're back in familiar territory. Wow, we've got a double arch. Where are we, and what is going on? This is an amazing shot.
Yeah, that's one of the biggest projects that I worked on last year, 2024, and that was in the spring in Death Valley. So I captured this at the end of March, and I was planning this shot for a long time. The main reason is because you can only shoot these kind of images for a very specific time of the year, and that's in the northern hemisphere is around late March, early April, depending on the new moon. But that's when you have the image on the right side, which is the winter, what we call winter Milky Way, with the Orion constellation, a little bit of zodiacal light on the right side as well, in the Pleiades.
Oh, wow, yeah.
And that's after sunset. So as soon as the sun sets, you have this kind of Milky Way panorama. And then a few hours later, before sunrise, the Milky Way core is rising. So technically, you can shoot in the same night both arches. The winter and the summer, what we call summer Milky Way arches on the same night. Last year, conditions were very special because we had a flooded Death Valley basin, and that's not typical. Normally, this is dry, and you have this kind of hexagons and patterns.
The playa, the cracked playa.
Yeah. But this time it was completely flooded. It was a very unusual year in Death Valley with a lot of rain, and there was some reflections. And I say, I really need to capture this. So I spent one night, full night. I actually didn't move my tripod. So the place where I'm shooting there that's where I was shooting my image for the sky. And then I was taking this image entirely in the same night. So I didn't move my tripod. I went there after sunset, put my tripod, do my first panel, have a break, and then I started with my other, panel for the summer Milky Way, and then put them together. So it was exhausting because I didn't sleep in the entire night. But I think it's a good depiction of how the night sky looks, in the spring in the northern hemisphere.
Yes.
And it's very rich, in not only the Milky Way but also constellations, clusters, stars. It's a beautiful area. Yeah.
Well, Justin's commenting, it's the double arch, the famous double arch, and for me, this wins the Milky Way photography of the Photographer of the Year award. This is a really very special image. Well worth all the work.
A lot of people were asking. A lot of people were asking, like, how do you put that together? How do you shoot that? So if there's been a lot of people in the last year asking how I did it. So if anybody's interested, I'm going to create a video on. It's going to be on YouTube, my channel. How I made this image, how I planned. So if anybody is interested, I think I'm going to release it for this year double arch, which is going to be in March. So I captured the atlas on YouTube. They can watch it, and I will be posting the video there.
Perfect. Thank you so much. That would be great. This is just. Again, a mind-boggling image that really showcases people. Again, I think they use your calendars and don't go out during the winter months looking for the Milky Way. Maybe, they look more towards Orion and other things, but they wait, until, March, April, May to really start going back to that core of the Milky Way. But you brought so much awareness to the winter Milky Way arch and the winter Milky Way, that it's while not as vibrant, it's still really cool, and there's still a reason to still not get much sleep in the wintertime. If you thought you'd hibernate as a night photographer in the wintertime, forget about it. Dan has inspired us yet again.
Exactly. Yeah, I always encourage people to go out year round, because it doesn't matter, the month of the year, there's always something interesting to shoot in the night sky.
Nice. And Waldata Photography is commenting that his project of the year is to get that double arc. So yes, you've inspired.
Yeah.
Okay, this is the final image. And I believe this is the image that you're going to be breaking down at Night Photo Summit, correct?
Yeah, that's the image. That, to me, for many reasons, is my favorite track Milky Way panorama, my favorite Milky Way panorama. It's a summary of so many things, and both, from personal things and also from a technical perspective. And I thought it was, like you said at the beginning of the talk, we are always talking a lot about showing images, and I thought, why not we take one image and do like a real anatomy? That's why the title is Anatomy, because dissecting every detail, like how I plan the image, from the beginning, from the initial conception, the idea, how I do all the planning behind the scenes, the hiking, how I place my camera, and then the capture, of course, how we're going into how I capture my images, the dual setup that I use, recommendations for panoramas, how you need to angle your camera, and also the editing, because once you capture everything, you have to put it together, and in Astro you need to edit your images. So I thought that this was a really interesting example of everything, all the process that I do. Everything came together really nice in this shot. There are a lot of beautiful things in this image, and also the technical side behind. I thought it was really interesting. That's what I thought. Why not doing a talk about this image, only this image? And I can promise to anyone watching this that if you watch the talk on on the 26th, you're gonna learn something new for sure, because there are so many things going on behind this image that, even if you get just a couple of tips, it'll be worth it, because it was very, very good example of different things.
I love it. There's a lot going on there, right? There's a lot to dissect and digest here. Zodiacal light, Milky Way, Panos. We got the Magellan Clouds. I love the water. The water is just like the perfect shutter speed to get that movement in it. So, wow. All right. I look forward to your class. Folks, reminder, obviously, the session we're talking about here is during Night Photo Summit, January 24th to the 26th. I believe, Dan, your session is on that Friday, your first day opening up, not opening up.
I'm actually on the 26th.
You're 26. You switched to okay.
Yeah.
Good.
I'm actually closing I'm closing the event. So
all right.
Last year, I think it was last year when I was opening, and this year I'm closing. So
boom. Thank you. All right. So closing it up. And then what's great about this, we'll dissect this. And then people who get their tickets to Night Photo Summit, they'll learn all the tips and tricks on this. And then right after we give away $17,000 worth of prizes. So it's pretty amazing. That's even if you could come for 2 hours, I'm just saying that would be a pretty smart time to come. All right. Let's go back over to here. All right. So Dan, thank you. You've taken us on an amazing journey with your images and your stories and everything. I wanted to just take a step back, let people know. Most people know Capture the Atlas as just a wonderful online resource for traveling, as well as for education, tons of photography education, gear knowledge, guides to all these wonderful places. But you should know that they also offer lots of hands-on workshops throughout the year. And Dan's got a whole team. The Capture the Atlas team goes everywhere. It seems to be, except for Antarctica, but we're working on that.
Correct. Yeah.
Dan, tell us a little bit about this year. And it seems like almost all your stuff is sold out. Can people get on wait lists, etc.? How many of these do you lead? How big is your team? And where are you most excited to be teaching this year?
Yeah, so we do a lot of work in the field. Our instruction is not only throughout the blog and the online courses that we have in the academy, it's also in the field. And we do a lot of workshops and photo tours internationally, not only in the US, but all over the world. And we have a wonderful team. We are 8 guides in total. So there are people, running workshops in the US, but also people in Europe or in South America. We cover most of the world. Again, not Africa. It's something that we have to still need to explore and to do something there. But we do a lot of workshops in the US, like Death Valley National Park, one of my favorite places in the country. Utah, like Arches and Canyonlands. We do Monument Valley. We do Acadia in Maine. Those are the main places that we do. And we are constantly open new trips. In Europe, we do a lot of places like Iceland, Norway, Dolomites, the Alps, South America, some of the places we saw in the pictures before, like Atacama, Patagonia, Peru, and also in Oceania, we do New Zealand. That's one of the trips we're open this year. One of the few we have still spots available in the group. So if anybody wants to, sign up, you can capture the atlas. I'm super excited about all the trips that we're running. I'm actually running my first trip next week. We're opening a new tour in Finland. It's the Finnish Lapland. And it's my first time there. It's super, super cold at the moment. So I'm going to go from the 70 degrees that we have here now in Spain to, I think it's minus 14. It was yesterday, minus 14 Fahrenheit. So it was like minus 20, minus 25 Celsius, which is crazy. I'm looking forward to it because it's a trip to capture the northern lights with these huge frozen trees covered with the snow, northern lights, sunrise, sunsets, wildlife. So super excited about that trip. That's going to be next week. And from there, we have an exciting year ahead. I'm going to Peru. I'm going to New Zealand. We basically have a lot of things going on. Yeah.
Love it. I love it. The Lapland area is super special up there. Really, really cool. The Sami people, that culture, the reindeers, all that fun stuff. Really, really amazing. Good luck up there. And I guess, and that's where you're going to be, you're going to be, your session is going to be coming live from the Laplands.
Yes. Yeah. I'll be live from there. Yeah. So I'll try to be Corman was, cozy in my hotel. So I'll be, doing my stream from there.
Nice. Go get cozy, get warm, get a whole new wardrobe ready.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, Dan, that wraps things up. Thank you so much. Really appreciate you taking out the time here to do another night talk with us. You've been a guest a couple times, but it's always a pleasure to gain just more insight, look at your latest work, and learn more about Capture the Atlas. So thank you for taking that time out of your day and your busy schedule. Thank you all for joining us here. And just remember, really, it was great love, great chitter chatter going on there. Remember that this will be rewrapped and as a reel in about 10 minutes or so on the National Parks at Night page. And then usually about 2-3 days afterwards, you will find this on our YouTube page as well, National Parks at Night YouTube page. You can find out where all these night talks with our Night Photo Summit speakers are by going to 2025.nightphotosummit.com and hitting the pre-con events tab at the top. And that's where all in one place, you'll see all of the speakers, many of them, or several of them actually were joining in this chat today. And those will give you the direct links to their to those talks. So again, great, Dan. Thanks so much for joining. Really a pleasure having you here. And if you too are passionate about night photography, consider joining us and other like-minded people at our annual, and this is our 5th annual Night Photo Summit virtual conference this January 24th to the 26th. We'll have over 45 presenters and 50 hours of inspiration. Folks, this is going to be the biggest one yet. Dan and I were talking about it earlier. This is the most speakers we've had, the most hours of inspiration, instruction, and quite a bit of fun. There is camaraderie, tons of it. Get to know the community of night photographers, night lovers, and a stellar glow-in-the-dark t-shirt mailed right to your home as well. Pretty cool t-shirt. If you can't make it that weekend, or if you'll miss 1 or 2 of the days, all these, you get online access to all of the classes, for 1 year after the live event. Each day, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, there's 3 tracks that you can follow. So it's impossible for you to watch them all, but usually they are rewrapped and ready to rewatch, usually within a couple hours or at least the next day. So a great way for you to really just take it in. If you are hibernating a little bit, hibernate, learn, and get inspired with us. Level up those skills with 3 full days of night photography education and inspiration at 2025.nightphotosummit.com. All right, that does it for me. Again, thank you all. I see Wadada Photography is saying thanks, Gabe and Dan. And he said, Dan, I'll see you in a few days. I guess.
Yeah, Ujjwal is coming with me to Lapland, so I will see him in a few days.
All right. I hope you sent him the what he needs to wear.
yeah. We already discussed that. Yeah.
Mittens upon mittens upon mittens. I get
a lot of layers.
A lot of layers. That's awesome. Thanks for joining us all. And again, thanks, Dan. We will see you coming up next. Night Talk, remember, is Tuesday. We'll go back to the evening schedule, Tuesday, with a Canadian Nikon ambassador, Monica Deviat. So stay tuned for that. All right?
All right. Thank you, Gabe. Thanks, everybody. See you.
We'll go seize the night.